Hi, everybody. Terry Brown at All Bass No Bull, and this is a highlight for me. This is one that I just absolutely am thrilled about getting to do, and I think the public feels the same way. Is Today I'm going to have Shaw Grigsby on, and not only is Shaw Grigsby a great angler, but he's a great friend, and he's a great friend to everybody in the sport, really, and also has the best mustache of anybody I've ever met in my life. And Shaw, I am excited more than you'll ever know about having you on here, and it's exciting to me to be able to look at the history of you and I, long time history, and have some fun talking about that. And I guess the first thing I got to ask you, retirement. I never thought in my wildest dreams that I would ever hear the word retirement out of you. It's sort of like me. I'm not going to retire ever. I may slow down, but I'm not retiring. Is that kind of where you're at?
Well, kinda. The real retirement was just from the circuit, and it's people think it's all fun and games out there, but it's pretty strenuous, and so my body, my mind, it's at that time where I say, hey, I need to not do this. There's enough going on that where I make mistakes, mental mistakes. My hands don't work exactly right. There's little things like that where I just say, it's time. It's time. I still love it. I mean, my passion is there. I love fishing, and it is kind of, you go like, that's really stupid to quit fishing when you love doing it and you're getting paid for it. So, no, I love the sport. I truly love the sport, but I'm just not going to compete on a full-time, series. So,
It's funny because you and I had hip replacements and we had all these other things go on throughout the year. Brower and I talked about it. He has more aches and pains than I do. So I'm not feeling that bad about it, really, to be honest with you. But, we talked about the hip replacement. That was really kind of a piece of cake. It's scary and you go through that, but everything that you have, your wrists, your hands, your elbows, your shoulders, that enters into the mix. And if you can't do it at 100% with the money you guys have to pay and everything else, it's got to be one of those things where you question it.
Yeah, and that's it, because when you're not physically engaged 100%, because of your age, that means that your performance isn't there, and then that bothers you, mentally and everything else. So yeah, it was just time, and I miss it. I mean, there's no doubt I'm going to miss being out there. I think the thing I'm going to miss most of all of it is the guys, hanging out, shooting the breeze, talking fishing, showing up, the whole deal, traveling. You're waking up before it gets light. You're out there and you're watching the sunrises and all that kind of stuff. It's a very, very, very special life, and I'll miss that. I'll definitely miss that, but I'll miss the guys most of anything.
It's funny. I go back to the outhouse in
Oh yeah,
Jacksonville, Florida, and I remember you had just won the All-American, I think, and you were doing a
1984.
seminar there. And I think about Bobby Hulslander and all those guys. We used to have bass club meetings there with the St. John's bass anglers and stuff. And I think that's really the first time you and I really sat down and really got to talk a little bit. You're always my hero because whenever we fished Orange Lake, I always fished for at least second because you were always going to win it. A lot of good stories come from Orange Lake. I remember Manuel Spencer. You might remember this story. He had like a 40-pound bag, and one of them jumped out of the boat, and he's sitting on the bank there and by the ramp. And he said, "If you want to get out, the rest of you can get out too." And he just started chucking them out, And Manuel was the kind of guy that could win any tournament that he fished. He could win any tournament. But he got mad at that fish jumping out, so he just took the rest of them and threw them out. Didn't even weigh them. And I mean, if I'd have had a 40-pound bag, I'd have kept a couple, wouldn't you? I think
yeah,
it's kind of one
absolutely,
of those yeah. What's the biggest bag you ever had at Orange?
I think 32.
That's a monster bag.
Yeah.
Now Heavy Hitters is going to be there next year, and you're going to have to drive over there and sit in your lounge chair, I guess. I don't know what you're going to do with that. It's going to be a tough one on you.
I'll hang out with the service crew. Those guys are aces, every one of them, just wonderful, wonderful people that, supported us forever. So I'll probably hang out there. Who knows? I may get out on the water and do whatever, keep an eye on things. But overall, yeah.
I think that we missed the boat a little bit. Guys like you, and I know you don't want to cover the country, right? I know you don't want to do that. But somebody with your talent, your ability, your seasoning, and the things that you know about would be a great analyst, an absolute killer analyst out on the water. Because you know what they're thinking about, you know what they're going through, you know what they're trying to do. So I'm putting my 2 cents in that I think you need to do that, especially at Orange Lake. There's no one that knows it better than you do. And, I think the analyst job, we've got to have somebody that fishes. I don't think this is my 2 cents. I think when you have anglers running circuits, it's not necessarily the best thing in the world because they're self-serving a lot of time. But we need anglers engaged in the sport, whether they're fishing it or not. And I think that you would be, I just think you'd rock it. I think it would be super to have you out on the water at Orange for heavy hitters.
I remember the old days watching, Bassmaster. There were times when Tommy Martin would be the commentator and, the analyst. And we had some really great guys that they were so good at showing and depicting what's going on. It was really great those times. So, well, I'm not opposed to it. I'll be here.
I'll make a phone call. I'll make a phone call. It won't get very far because I have no clout, but I will make a phone call. It's funny you talk about Tommy. Tommy, I called him the sage. I did the great angler debate with him. And, he remembers things like Randy Dearman putting duct tape on a spinnerbait blade. He remembers every tournament that ever was, every tournament that he could tell you what bait they used, what pound test line they used, what reel they used. Those guys are going away, Shaw, and it scares me to death. I look at tournament fishing right now, and I kind of think to a certain extent it's dying a little bit. We need an injection of something. I don't know what we need. I'm not that guy, but I can tell you that we need something because of the complaining, the belly aching, the arguing, and it's at all levels. It's at the grassroots levels here with the high school kids. It's at the top levels in pro fishing, and we got to get away from that. There's no question.
It's a transition time right now. We have fishing as it's been forever, since they started tournaments. Ray started them back in the 60s, 68, I think is when it happened. That's tournament fishing that we've seen. And now we have this forward facing sonar, active target, and the whole different generation of video game fishing. And I don't think, there's one organization that doesn't allow it, so that's one way of doing it, of getting those people that don't like it or whatever, that don't like change. But I think as a sport, it's just going to evolve. It's like anything else. We used to drive our cars all over the country, and you sit behind there and listen to a radio, and this station would go out and you'd pick up a different station. And now we have satellite radio. We have cell phones that we didn't have back then. Internet, you're totally connected. Change is inevitable. Your opinion of that, or your acceptance of that, is what's different. Some people really hate change. Some people adapt to it. And I think every angler is going to have to adapt to it. And whether we see those old days, come back, I don't know that will happen. The technology is incredible. I can't tell you how much I love using active target, and looking at a fish movement, or alligators, whatever. You spot whatever's in the water. And to me, it's exceptional. Right where it is, when it's there, and how it's moving. And that's really cool. So, crappie anglers, they live off of that. Now bass anglers live off of it. I don't doubt saltwater anglers live off of it. And so, yeah, it's a great technology, and you just have to, you either have to adapt, or, you're going to be left behind.
Well, you think about it. There was a time when we really didn't have depth finders. We had a flasher, right? And we adapted to LCRs, that back then, liquid crystals. Then we go to the X15s, paper graphs. Then we go to all this other kind of stuff. We all adapted then without any complaint. Now, all of a sudden, we've got something that's actually a live picture, and it scares the devil out of a whole bunch of people. But, we're not using persimmon shafts in our drivers and our golf clubs anymore. Technology's there to be, it's there to be used and figured out and all that kind of stuff. I like the good old days. guys like us like the good old days. We've been
Yes.
around it. We were there when it started. We know what it was and how it was. And, I said one day, somebody asked me, what's different? And I said, the only thing that's different is social media, because arguing, complaining, yelling and screaming at each other was available back in the 60s. We yelled, screamed, hollered, what are you on my spot for? All that stuff went on. It just didn't get the social channels like it does
Right.
now. So everybody's got an opinion, right? Everybody's going to sit and go, oh man, I would have done this. No, you wouldn't have. You wouldn't have done anything, because I've been there. I was in the boat. I was in the boat with you guys. I was in the boat by myself a lot of times, and all that stuff went on. It was just kind of like the Ray Scott and Bo Dowden being the Olympic swimmer, right?
Yeah.
Nobody knew if he was an Olympic swimmer or not, but I can tell you, Ray talked about it all the time. Ray, he was an Olympic swimmer. We had all these different things that Ray threw at it that made it fun for me. I got in this sport for guys like you and Denny and Forrest Wood and Jerry McKinnis, all those guys that had vision. I got in this sport to do that. I had a job, in the corporate America, and said, no, that's not for me. This is for me. This right here, what I'm doing with you right now, this is what I live for. And I'll never get out of it, and I know that word retirement scares me, okay? Because I kind of backed off a wire to fish quite a bit. What happened was that I, got some situations at home I had to take care of and do some other
Right.
stuff. And so that takes priority, and it always will. So
Right.
I backed off of it too, but I don't want that quote retirement name put next to mine anytime, because I never will. I tell a lot of people that I put wheels on my chair here at the office so that the day I die, they can wheel me to the door, because that's all I want. I just want to live this the rest of my life. And I'm sure you're in the same boat.
Retirement scared me just stepping away from tournaments, because tournament motivates me. It makes you get up early. It makes you go. You don't even question it. You just get up early, you go all day, you come back, you're exhausted, you do it again and again, come home, it takes a few days to recover, you get back at it again. And so I always thought that if I retired, I would sit on the couch, because I'd be nice and comfortable, sit on the couch, and I'd die within a year, just doing nothing. And but I have other things to do. So being sedimentary is not going to happen. I am a nuisance gator trapper with a friend of mine. He's the trapper. I'm an agent. And man, some days we're taking 7 calls a day where we're catching a gator out in front of a lady's door. She can't get out, or we're getting one out of a swimming pool, or we got one on the side of the interstate, or we've got them in campus here at University of Florida, and I'm having to go capture them. And it's so fun, and it's rewarding. It's service. We're doing a service to move these gators. It's all live capture. We don't kill any of them. We live capture them, and then we take them. And if they're small, we let them go at a prairie where it's a preserve, so they live their life out there. Or if they're big, then we can't let them go, and we have to take them, and we sell them to gator farms and stuff like that. So we've taken quite a few to Gatorland, which is a great tourist attraction there in Orlando. So it's something that now that motivates me. You get a call and you go, hey man, you got an 8-footer in front of this lady's house. You're like, let's go. And we jump out there and go get them. So, it's really fun. And so I have something that motivates me, and it's like a lot of it's rod and reel. So I just take my Lew's rod and reel with 80-pound braid instead of 65 for flipping her frog. I caught one on a frog the other day, an 8-footer that ate a lady's dog. Unfortunately, ate her pet, and we had to go capture it and get it out of there. And I couldn't. It was all cabbage filled stuff, and so I actually had to use my Strike King popping perch to cook it. And then we went over there and got it in. It was
They
fun.
put a fight. They put on quite a fight, don't they? They're strong little. I can remember, being on the St. Johns River where I lived, you'd catch one that'd be, 3 feet long, and you'd try to get the hook out and be, they're strong, and that's just a little one.
Yeah.
They'll whip you in a boat. They'll whip you, and they have teeth. Just for the record, they have teeth. So you got to, I
Big
still
teeth,
got all 10
yeah.
fingers, but. It was always fun. Buzzbait was always my favorite bait to
Yes.
They'll chase right up to the boat. They'll come right up to the boat to do it.
Yes, they will.
Serious gear for serious anglers. DD26 delivers tournament tough performance you can trust. From the front to back of your boat, DD26 has you covered. DD26. No shortcuts, just badass American-made gear.
You've got gator thing. Now it sounds like you've got that on your mind, but Osceolas, going out and doing some turkey hunting, I'm sure that's big for you. And then also you deer hunt too, right? And hog hunt.
Well, I used to deer hunt a lot. I haven't done much of it lately, but I do like the turkey hunting. We do, and when it's fun, we have hogs, wild hogs, and they tear up everything. So when they're around, of course, I pick those off, every now and then, and we barbecue them. And but yeah, so I do a little bit of hunting, duck hunting. My son loves it, duck hunting. So duck hunting is more on my mind. Turkey definitely in the spring. And hog hunting. We have deer at the yard, and they're here every day, and they'll have their little ones here, and then they raise them here, and they've become so much like pets. It's like I don't think of whacking them anymore here, but every now and then we get a big buck that wants to come through to breed all the does that we feed all year, and so when that happens, my son sometimes comes out here and tries to pursue one of them. We had a real big one last year, but he didn't get it. So it's still around. We'll see. Maybe it'll show up this year, and he'll get a shot at it with his bow.
Is he doing this all the time? Ducking arrows, ducking them? It's funny. We had the Wire to Fish World Championship. You remember that? You came up here. We fished these two little lakes by me.
That was fun. Yeah.
Oh, that was a hoot. We need to do that more. I need to do that every year. And we were sitting out here talking, and there was more talk. You, Klein, and Brower, and all the guys that were out here sitting around. There was no fishing talk. None. It was always deer hunting, turkey hunting, everything. We sat out on a picnic table outside my office here, and I had more fun just listening to the stories about, oh, man, this big one, and you guys are doing the whole deal. And that is what you're going to miss. I mean, you're still going to have your buddies around home and that kind of stuff, but it's not going to be the knuckleheads that we hang around with all the time. No. And that's going to be the tough one.
Yeah. I remember, we used to do a bass and race. Woody Blackburn would do this deal, bass and race and bass and golf. Well, the bass and race show was with NASCAR drivers, and we'd go fishing with the NASCAR guys at Disney, and then we would go and do, race on a little go-kart type deal, and had a blast. I mean, it was a lot of fun. But Dale Earnhardt came for 2 or 3 years, always fished with Hank. Hank and he were really good friends. But it was really cool because you walk up to Dale, and if you mention something about race cars, it was like, and he's gone, But you sat down and you talked to him about, you should say, hey, man, you caught a big one, or he would talk to you for an hour about, other than his sport, so that's kind of what, we talk about our sport when we're fishing, but when we get together, it's about, hey, we have a passion for the outdoors and a passion for those things outdoors. And so, yeah, it really lights us up. So, yeah, really.
Well,
cool.
The Wired to Fish World Championship, year one, I won. Okay. So they were on me. I mean, I think everybody just goofed around the first year. Well, I pulled up on a spot and caught, I had like 15, 16 pounds, not much big, but it was all right on this little lake. Brower and his partner, I didn't have a partner this tournament, so I win it by myself. So Brower pulls up to me and he says, what are you doing? I'm catching them pretty good. And he says, you got to get off this spot. So I get off the spot, and he gave it to him. Here you go, have at it, right? Here, there's where they're setting, have at it. Well, first cast, he throws a jig out, breaks it off. Next cast, he throws out, breaks it off. So he's on the phone. I look over at him. He's on the phone, and he had a hook. He had a new jig that he was making for Strike King, right? And he has a hook that he didn't like. It kept having problems. He was not getting a good hook in it, and it had a tendency to break and stuff. Well, he was on the phone at Evergreen Lake, about 8 miles from my house here, talking to the Strike King folks about changing this jig. I said, you don't get any better than this. It doesn't get better than this. This is what it's all about. Well, then year two comes around, right? And we have year two, and those guys were rubbing it in terrible. They're not going to let me win. They would run into me. They would do anything they could so I couldn't win on my local pond, right? Well, Scott Suggs and a partner he had, Brian Estes, they caught 22 pounds on this pond, and we'd never seen a 22-pound bag. And guess what they caught it on? A P70 popper.
Wow.
Caught every fish on a P70. And I said, Well, I guess they got their wish. It was kind of one of those deals. But we had good. We talk about our passion, the outdoors. We talk about eating because we all love to eat. We
Yes.
talk about all the things we like to do with our families, and I bet you Polly's just happy as a clam down there with you
Yeah.
that she's going to see you a little bit more. I think.
Yes. Yeah. The lack of travel is going to be really nice. It's nice to know that, if I go out and I go after a gator, I just go there and I come back, and it's not, it's not a week gone or 10 days. And almost all of my tournaments that we're having now are about 9 or 10 days that you plan on traveling, a day or two there and then 6 or 7 there and then a day or two home. And it's a while. So now it's, you come home every day. It's kind of like having a regular job.
8 to 5, 8 to 5. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
It's our lives change as we get older. The bones and muscles and everything else go to heck. But honestly, I think more than anything else, our attitudes change. In the fact that what was important before may not be now. I mean, priority comes to family and all that kind of stuff. A lot more than it did when I was younger. My wife put up with more hooey from me being gone, doing what I like to do and loved it, and never said a word to me. Well, now it's my turn to give it back to her. Yeah. And we've been married almost 50 years, believe that or not. And it's
nice.
Yeah, it is. Get to 50 years, I'm probably going to have to do something special. I'm not sure. We might go 8 miles from here and eat a fish sandwich or something. I don't know.
Ours is this weekend, and it's 45.
So that's awesome. That is awesome. And grandkids, of course, you got your sons and and grandkids and all that kind of stuff going on. Let's talk a little bit about the gator thing, because we did talk briefly about it, but I want to talk about, how did you get started and when did you first start doing that where you were hunting them for meat?
Well, we first started by just hunting them. I used to catch them when I was a kid, and there was a story at high school that was kind of cool because I was the outdoor kid, right? I was the kid that did a lot of stuff outdoors, and I actually brought a live rattlesnake and a live cottonmouth to school, at high school, in an aquarium, and we put it there on the table, and then we sold it to Ross Island's Reptile Institute, which was at Silver Springs. Now, Ross Island was the world's foremost authority on poisonous snakes. So that was really cool because you could take and capture poisonous snakes and sell them to them. And anyway, so his ex-wife was my biology teacher, and I was in math class, and she came in and said, "Hey, I need Shaw." And we're like, okay. And so they pulled me out of class, and I'm walking with her. I said, what are we doing? She said, well, there's an alligator in the creek, and we need to get it out of there because I don't want any of these kids to get bit. And I'm like, what about me? I'm a kid, And so anyway, and the only alligators I'd ever caught was with a worm or a buzz bait, like you were talking, and stuff like that. So anyway, I had to get down in the creek and sneak down and grab him behind the head. He was on the bottom. I grabbed him behind the head, and he just, was a little guy, about 3.5, 4 feet. And I held on for dear life, and because I knew if I let go, he was going to bite me, so I held on, and then we subdued him. I got his mouth closed, and we got him wrapped up and took him to a pond. But so I was kind of the outdoor kid, and that was probably one of the first alligators. That's the first alligator I've ever caught by hand, rather than with a rod and reel. But then we started getting gator season, so you could hunt them here. And so my son and I would start hunting them, and we enjoyed that. It was a lot of fun. Put in for tags. A lot of years you don't draw, some years you do. And so we've been hunting them a long time, but I just happened to meet Ron. He's the Captain Ron Sanderson. He's the nuisance gator trapper. I met him at like a CCA banquet or Ducks Unlimited. He's real big in CCA, Coastal Conservation. And so I met him, and he said, hey, you like gator hunting. You need to come with me one time, just capture one of these gators. I said, I'd love to, and I had all these techniques that we had developed gator hunting. And so we just meshed really quick. I mean, he and I became real good friends, and we started catching his gators, the nuisance gators, and having fun. So I learned from him about, catching them live and how to be safe with it. and he's learned about how to use not only electronics but rods and reels and hooks, and hooking them up and playing around just like you would a 10 pound bass. You don't just rip him to the boat. You fight him around, or a big smallmouth, same deal, and then you wear them down and then you get them. And so we really work well together. So I started doing that, and now that has become, because it's fishing, but it's fishing for something really big, which is an alligator.
Yeah,
so it's a lot of fun.
I reminisce all the time, because I guess that's what you do when you get old. You reminisce about the good old stuff that we had. But I know this, and I know this to the bottom of my heart. There's not a better human being in this world than Shaw Grigsby. Well, and I can't tell you how many times that people have said that to me. And it is not coming from me. It's coming from people who you engage with. And, you're still going to get speaking engagements. I'm sure you've got plenty of them and all that kind of stuff. But, for me, don't be a stranger. There's more to life.
Absolutely.
I can remember a guy, and you'll know who I'm talking about, who's one of my best friends in the world. And we talked one day about just having some Christianity. Just get God closer to you. And he did. And largely as a result of what you talked to him about. I talked to him all the time, but he didn't listen to me anytime. So it was kind of one of those deals where you said the exact same thing I said, but you did it from your heart and not because you worked with the guy, right? And he has found God, and he is doing a heck of a
wonderful
job.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you've got to have something that stabilizes you. No matter what it is, it's got to be something that stabilizes you, and God's a great place for that to happen. And if you don't know where your butter comes from for your bread, you better be careful. That's all I got to say about that.
I do so many now speaking engagements at church. In fact, I preached yesterday at my church. Our pastor was on vacation, so I left. But the most important thing in life is to have a relationship with Jesus Christ. And I mean a personal relationship, not just know him, but have a personal relationship with him. And I can tell you yesterday was a huge, huge blessing at the church. But life is, the world wants you to believe that Bible is fake, that it's just stories from olden times. But when you look at it and you see that every bit of the Bible, that when they find some archaeological artifact, it's always in that proves the Bible to be true. And the deal with evolution and all that's all just bunk. I mean, they've never found fossils that show evolution. There's no this and then this. It's either this and then it goes to this way over here. They don't have those intermediate fossils. There's just so much that people try to hide and say no, and that's basically the devil doing that. And the most important thing you can do in life, because I'm telling you, if you look at Revelations and parts of the Bible that are showing when the end times come, when Christ is coming back, it's coming, it's happening. You see it. You see all this evil that's in our world right now, and you see what's happening. And we're also seeing now, this is really cool, we're seeing a bit of a harvest where college campuses, there's 1,000 or 2,000 kids getting saved. They have big revivals now, and it's really, really cool to see that. But if there's one thing you can do in life, it's accepting Jesus Christ, put him in your heart, start following him, read that Bible. Man, I read the King James Bible every morning. I have the Bible app on my phone. It dings up, in fact, comes up with a scripture. I get in that scripture every single morning, and then I'll read the chapter. You can hit the little 3 buttons. It'll say read full chapter. And I do that, and that keeps you in that and learning more about what God wants for you in life. And it's really good. James, if you want to do one thing, read James in the Bible. It'll teach you about how you should live. And it's easy. It's only 6 chapters. It's little or 6 pages. I mean, it's small, but it'll teach you about how to live. So yes, that's the most important thing, because everything else, money doesn't mean anything. Everything else, when you die, you're not going to sit there and go, boy, I wish I had another $10, or I wish I had another $100. It's I wish I had that relationship with Jesus Christ, because then I know where I'm going. That's right. Important.
That's right. We I'm honored as always. You and I have been friends for a long, long time. And this is so special for me to get this opportunity to sit here and talk to you. And, we need to do it more than what we do. We're always been so busy. Maybe, along the way, we'll cross paths again. But Shaw, thanks for being with us during All Bass and No Bull.
Thank you, Terry. I certainly appreciate you, man. Appreciate the opportunity. And I'm enjoying my retirement. There you go.